Hi friends, welcome to Web Mobiles. I'm Sai Haridas and today I'll walk you through the process of developing applications. So at a very high level, application development could be classified into native mobile application development or responsive web development or the hybrid application development. So I would be covering mostly things like the code that you need to develop these applications and the future proofness of these applications once you develop them, and the cost it takes to develop these applications, and the cross-platform issues that arise generally, and the performance issues that are related to one option over the other. So these are the kind of technical discussions that I do with my clients before they assign some project to me. Once the technical discussion happens, we get to get into the business requirements of it, and then we streamline the requirements, or we kind of take the trade-offs, and then we put the budget forward. So this is exactly the same discussion that I do with my clients that I'm going to walk you through, and from here on you can we can go into further details in the next videos. So when it comes to native mobile application development, you would have either two platforms, like one of the two platforms, which is Android application development or iOS application development. So for Android application development, you would need either a Java developer, or you need to just learn Java yourself. Or for iOS, for iPhone development, you would need a Swift developer or Objective-C developer. And when it comes to Android application development, you could use Windows operating system or any other operating system for that matter, and there's no problem. But when it comes to iPhone application development, you are forced to use the Apple ecosystem, or you have to have a tablet or a MacBook or whatever, but you have to have an Apple product to be able to develop the iPhone applications. So when it comes to responsive web approach of developing applications, these are the applications which are built for the web browser, and wherever the web browser is, like, these applications run. That's the greatness with these applications. And when you say responsive, what it means is based on the screen size of the device, the elements inside your application get realigned. So if, for example, if you have an application that you built for desktop, it occupies the whole space, and when you open the same application on your phone, it just realigns to a vertical line and makes you feel like it's a native app. These are the kind of responsive applications. And the skills that you need for the responsive web are HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript or TypeScript. So the developers who are good with responsive web are generally called front-end developers, and they are very good with JavaScript. When it comes to hybrid applications, you have various array of choices. The hybrid application then could be classified and needs further discussion on that. But hybrid applications basically have, for a long time there's been a jQuery mobile approach of developing applications, and there is a React Native, which is a relatively very new way of developing applications. And these are the kind of developers. React Native developers are the ones who have experience with React framework from Facebook, and they also learn React Native. And once the application is developed in React Native, they can build the applications which end up being a native code for Java, or for Android or for iPhone. That's the greatness of React Native applications. And the other less popularly known approach is a JavaFX Gluon framework. I'm a Java developer, and this framework is like a boon for me. It lets me use all my Java skills and develop applications for both Android as well as iOS at the same time. So that's really awesome for people like me who are experienced Java developers. And that's like the essence of what it takes, the core point of view for developing applications in different paradigms. And for the future proofness, of these applications are like, if you develop a native application, now whenever there is an update to the operating system, Android or iOS, you don't really have to worry about whether your application code will work or not, because Google or Apple usually take good care of their developers who use their own native code. So you should be good for the most part. And when it comes to responsive web, all you need to take care of is the browser. If there is an update to the browser, you may have to do some updates to your code, which is relatively less frequent, and you should be fine for the most part. Browsers are becoming more mature now. They all follow some standards, and as long as you're following the standards, you should be good. And the hybrid applications are the ones which kind of like suffer a lot when there is an update, because when it comes to hybrid applications, you're using a third-party tool to build applications for these operating systems. And these operating systems don't necessarily think about the hybrid application developers when they do an upgrade. So your application has more chances of breaking if you go with the hybrid approach. But if you're sticking with very basic things like uploading a file, like browsing through and clicking on a few things, you should be fine. But if you use any specific like platform dependent kind of things with the hybrid, you may actually have a lot of problems. So that these kind of thoughts need to warrant a discussion before you actually get into the application development. So let's get into the cost aspect of it. Developing an application native app is always way more expensive because you have to develop your code for iOS as well as Android. So you have to maintain two separate code bases. So this is going to be very expensive compared to other options. And when it comes to responsive web, this is the most cheapest option because you're only developing for browser. For say you're developing for Chrome browser, and the Chrome browser is available on all operating systems. So the cost is relatively low, but low is just a relative term. It could still be high based on what you ask within the requirements, but definitely it is relatively low compared to the hybrid or as well as the native approach. And when it comes to the cost of the hybrid applications, it really depends again on the features that you ask. This is way more dependent on the features compared to other paradigms of development, because it really depends whether the third-party tool can support that kind of build for that particular feature, or even if the operating systems allow you to develop a hybrid app for that particular feature. So that needs a lot more discussion when you come to hybrid application development. So the cross-platform issues. This is where the native mobile applications suffer a lot. They are not built for developing to run on like multiple platforms. So when you develop an application for Android, it only runs on Android operating systems. It doesn't run, you can't expect that code base to run in iPhone applications. And same is true for iOS applications. Like if you develop anything for iOS, they can't run on Android. So this is where they suffer the most, native applications. And when it comes to responsive web, it shines a bit here because the responsive web has it is built for the not for the operating system, but it's built for the browser. So it works fine without any problem for the most part, but it's kind of slow. So hybrid applications here shine up. That's what they really promise. They promise that you develop one code base and they do the build for you. Once the build is done, that is when you get the both native, the native apps for iOS as well as on Android. So this is where the hybrid apps shine the most. And when it comes to performance, obviously the native apps beat the other paradigms hands down, because the native apps are generally developed using Java or Swift, and these languages are optimized for the core for these operating systems. So these native apps really shine well when it comes to performance. And if you have to use some hardware features, I think it's better off going with the native app than any other approach. And the performance of a responsive web is kind of where it suffers, because these work fine. The responsive web applications work fine on the mobile phones, but usually when you open the application for the first time, if somebody comes to your site, which is a responsive website, the time it takes to load the whole site could be more, because a refresh request is made over the HTTP and all the images have to come to your phone, and it may take some time. But usually the browsers also cache some amount of these files, and you should be fine second and third time. unless you have clear your cache. But the hybrid applications, they're okay here. They're not really great, but theoretically they are supposed to be as good performance as the native mobile apps. So that's the summary of what it takes to develop an application at the technical level. I'm the CTO of Web Mobiles. We develop applications using all the paradigms depending on the budget and requirements. We have vast experience in developing applications, and you can check out our portfolio in the link below. And if you have any needs, technical application development needs, you can approach us, and the first consultation would be free. We would walk you through the technical requirements. We will understand your business requirements and streamline the application development process. And from there on, you could use we even develop a few mockups for you, and you can take your mockups for free, and you can go to any other application developers or develop it yourself. So just feel free to contact us if you have any application development. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope the video was useful and informative. Thank you.